Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Dangerously Divine podcast. My name is Rachel, and today I am joined by boutique fitness owner Jaylin Knight. Hi, Jaylin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For those of us who don't know what boutique fitness is or haven't heard of you and your journey, would you mind just giving a little bit of an intro to who you are and how you started your business?
Certainly. So boutique fitness originated over 14 years ago when I moved to San Diego, and it was an outdoor fitness company where I specifically train women. And the idea was to really give women a space to improve their physical fitness that felt good to them and something they actually wanted to do versus making it a chore. And that sort of philosophy has continued with me, only we've taken it past just the physical fitness and really gotten into mental fitness. And so just in the last year or so, I've gotten online and becoming more of a mental fitness coach, really helping women specifically with wanting to lose weight and just feel really good in their bodies and themselves.
Do you feel that the mind and the body are connected?
100%.
So what made you feel like you were ready to take that next challenge on? What was that light bulb moment that you had that made you want to work with people's, spiritual and mental health as well?
Yeah, so it was actually a get out of my own way situation, in that I had that light bulb a long time ago. And I've been wanting to get into the coaching realm and to go broader and to talk more and to get deeper. And I was scared. I was scared of starting something new. I was scared of getting online. And it wasn't until I really practiced through my own mental fitness and got through that fear and opened up my own space that I was able to do that. So basically, I got out of my own way.
Yeah. What did that journey look like? Because I know there's a lot of people maybe standing in their own way. Maybe they're not business owners or, want to do anything with fitness, but do you have any advice for people who might not realize that they're standing in their own way, for them to identify that?
Yeah, for me, it's when things keep not going the way you want them to go. And the reason that is because I was constantly building up resistance because I wasn't doing what I really wanted to be doing. I knew this was something I wanted to do. I knew this was the direction I wanted to go in. And because I was letting fear hold me back, other things just kept not going right for me. And enough of those things didn't go right for me that I finally listened to all of those messages. Right. It's like, oh yeah, I should follow my true calling, what really feels good to me. And it's been great.
And then did things start to click and become easier?
Yes. And there's challenges, 100%. There are
Sure.
challenges of starting something new and different. But those challenges weren't anything near the kind of fear that I had that they would be. And so, yes, things start to fall in line and they start to feel better. And, the clients showed up easier than I expected them to. And I got to reconnect with clients that I used to train in a fitness realm and got to see them in this new space. And so things really started to come together. And I'm really happy I finally got here.
Oh, that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
It's my pleasure.
I always talk about listening to your intuition and the difference between our intuition and our ego. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I was speaking to a client whose intuition is constantly giving her the same message. And I kind of had to look at her and I was like, intuition won't shut up. Like, that's the one difference between our intuition and our ego. I feel like that if you're not very good at listening to your intuition or you haven't honed in on that skill yet, if it's something that is constantly coming up, that is your intuition. Like, your ego, you can kind of silence sometimes, or maybe it comes and it goes with certain situations. But our intuition, when it wants to send us a message, it will not stop until that message gets across. Does that resonate with you?
I can see from that point of view. Also, for me, it's very much that whichever part like really feels the most good to you, right? And that can be tricky because even though the idea of like getting into the coaching world felt good to me, there were all these other pieces that didn't. And to decipher that was fear that I was letting come in. So you might call that as ego. But I was letting that fear kind of cloud the intuition, even though it was coming in the same, it felt like it was coming from the same space. I had to really get clear about what was coming from where and what that meant to me. And then as I was doing that and I was getting much better at quieting the fears and amplifying the voice of my intuition, it became very clear.
Right. You got to decipher in that package what is what. So you've talked a little bit about your journey and you've used the word mental fitness a few times. Can you define that for listeners who maybe don't know? I love that term, but yeah, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so mental fitness is basically your capacity to handle life's challenges with a positive mindset. And so I actually learned that term from positive intelligence, which is where I learned my coaching skills from. But it's really about being able to choose what part of your brain that you're going to listen to. So whether you're going to listen to the side that's feeling in that survival mode with all the negative emotions, with the fear and anxiety and things like that, or you can literally teach your brain to choose to listen to the positive sides where your intuition is coming from and the positive emotions and the clarity. And so building your mental fitness makes it much easier for you to decipher those things and to choose which one you're going to listen to.
Yeah. And I like the word fitness too, because
it resonates, right?
It resonates because it's like, it is a muscle, I feel like, that we have to constantly strengthen. And there is no end goal. That's why I like the term fitness. And that's why that resonated with me because, you know, if you say healing, that kind of implies a healed. And but there really is no healed. Like there is no end goal of And so fitness is one of those things that you can constantly be working on and evolving. So I love that. So are you still doing boutique fitness as a way for women to actually get physically fit, or is it all just the mental work right now?
Nope, still running both sides of it. I fortunately have an amazing trainer that helps me run the in-person physical classes for me. But so we're doing both ends. Yeah.
Both ends. So how does our physical bodies and being physically fit impact the way that we think and what we do? What is like that marriage between those two?
Yeah, and I think I like the word marriage because there's so much give and take between the physical and the mental or the emotional, right? There's a lot of give and take in marriage, hopefully. But some let's say you don't feel good physically, right? And you're just kind of feeling lethargic, or you're in pain, or just things don't feel good to you. Then where are your emotions, right? Like how happy are you feeling about the day? How much do you get out of bed and everything hurts? Like how optimistic are you looking forward to the rest of your life? And it kind of goes both ways, that if you're already feeling really low and sad and in a not great space, then how much do you feel like moving your body? Right. And so they flow both ways together, and 100% the positive part of that flows too. If you're feeling kind of down and you start lifting yourself up, then you're going to want to exercise more. And if you're feeling down and you start exercising and then that makes you feel better, then you're going to have more positive emotions. And so both of them feed off of that momentum, and they can do it in a positive or negative way.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it does flow both ways. I recently saw this Instagram post, and I'm going to mess it up. It's always an Instagram post or a TikTok with me, or a quote. That was like, the headline of the quote was like, "Oh, I'm depressed." And then it was like, "Okay, but did you move your body? Did you see the sunlight today? Did you eat nourishing foods? Did you call a friend? Did you do your responsibilities?" And it's like, most of the time we can say, "Oh no, because I'm depressed." But also it's like, well, those are the things that you have to do. Right? So when we talk about that kind of, like we said, give and take, what are some stages what are some activities that we could do to help our minds and our bodies become more balanced?
So there really are an infinite number of things that you can do, but I think the important part is to recognize that little steps are the way to get there. Right? Like so many people want to go from like feeling depressed to not feeling depressed anymore. And it doesn't work like that. It goes from feeling depressed to feeling a little less sad to just feeling, a little bit better to a little bit better. And then you finally get to these spaces that actually feel great. And then you can continue building from there. But I think so many people want to take those quantum leaps. And because those quantum leaps are not easy to take, then they don't get anywhere, as opposed to really appreciating the baby steps to that. But something in particular that we do for mental fitness, we call them PQ reps. And sort of like at a gym, you do your bicep reps and your squat reps, things like that. But these are just getting hyper focused in your body. So using any of your senses. And what it does is literally in your brain, it's shutting down the neurons that are firing with all of your fears and those thoughts that are bringing you down, and just gets you to get out of that moment, gives you a piece of that. But they're really simple. We can do it with your listeners. Would you like to?
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds great.
So I'm just going to talk them through this. So I'm going to have your index and your thumb fingertip touch each other. And then I just want you to rub them so gently that you can feel the ridges on both fingertips. And that's all you're doing is paying attention to the ridges. And just super duper simple. Right? And so it's something as simple as that. For as little as 10 seconds, we usually do it for more like 2 minutes, and you can do it in a variety of ways. But literally they can see in functional MRI machines that it's changing the way your brain is firing. And this is how we're literally stopping the thought processes that are causing the fear and the negativity and the depression. And little by little, we can give you a chance to stop from that and then choose a thought that feels a little bit better. So from fear to anger, and from anger into disappointment, right? So a little bit better. But the more you practice this, just like doing reps in the gym, the stronger you get at being able to pull yourself into those higher and higher emotions.
Right. Okay. So you're like interrupting the brain when it's in chaos mode.
Yeah. But so by doing that, did you notice like just a sense of peace? Or like, were you thinking of anything else while you were doing the fingertips?
Yeah, no, I almost forgot that we were recording this.
And that's the beauty of it,
that
right?
was great.
It's so simple. And like it literally anytime you just like get hyper focused on anything, you can do it like by really tuning and just staring at something. You can do it by really listening to something. You can do it with any sense of touching anything, just like really focusing on what you're touching. And these are the kind of things that like people are like, that won't do anything, right? But that is the thing that's doing it. It's like doing one bicep curl won't do anything, but many, many bicep curls, and you've got beautiful arms. Right.
Wow. That's great. I'm going to take that with me.
Awesome.
Normally I do like the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, but that takes a lot of time to go through that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I do it more for like gratitude and grounding purposes and less to get out of my brain. But yeah, that was so simple. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was fantastic.
One of my favorites, practical way is on the road. I really like to feel my steering wheel. It keeps me very, very calm and centered. And there might be other people on the road that aren't driving the way that I would like them to. But like, just kind of.
I've found I just got a new car recently. I don't know. I'm in LA, and LA is notorious for traffic. I don't know where you're from, but I promised myself, I'm like, in this new car, I will not feel anxious. I will not get stressed. I won't get road rage. Like, no bad vibes in this car. Also, because my last car was like haunted, I feel. That's a story for another time. But similarly to you feeling the steering wheel, every time I like get on the road, I open my window and I take like 3 or 4 like big deep breaths and like feeling the air rush in through the window and just having that like moment of I don't know, like just oxygen flowing in my body really helps me get out of my mind also and just into my physical body.
Yeah. And it's so helpful. The reason I love these is because they're so versatile, right? Like it's great to have a meditation practice, but it's only so helpful if you go meditate for 15 minutes and then you come back into your real world, or you get on the road and somebody cuts you off and you're like, rah! Like, you're right back into the chaos of it, right? But this is like, you can constantly keep like re-upping and like kind of recharging that battery to like pull yourself back into your center and closer to who you really are, which is coming from a really great space.
Yeah. Wow. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that.
Cheers.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, the physical and the mental. Is there any other sort of outside factors that could come in if we're dealing with fear or anxiety? Maybe like bodily sensations or, thoughts that we should be cognizant of when we're dealing with this?
Well, so the two ways that we really like to address the negative emotions, right? So one is to just put that pause on and get it into your body. And the other is to get mindful about it and really question it. So many times those negative emotions, especially like judge emotions and fear emotions, things like that, like those thoughts that keep coming at you, or, you're not good enough is a very common one kind of idea. But how often have you bothered to question that? Like so many times we're just like, oh, you're right, I'm not good enough. Or why else would my mind be telling me I wasn't good enough if I'm actually good enough? But
Right.
when you actually start to question these kinds of thoughts, then that takes away so much of their power. And just by seeding that question into your mind, you're going to start finding more answers and more evidence of how great and worthy and amazing that you actually are. And it goes for any of those negative thoughts, because all those negative thoughts are just indicators that you're thinking about something in a way that's not really true for you, right? So once you more connect with your truth, and you can do that by getting mindful and questioning these negative thoughts, then you start to recognize more and more. You get the answers to those questions, which are going to bring out more and more of the positive evidence for you.
Yeah. Wow. That's so great. Yeah. Too many of us are just on autopilot and we don't question our thoughts, but we are not our thoughts.
Right.
You don't have to take ownership of every single idea that pops into your brain. That's amazing. And so my next question for you is, this is a question that I feel like we've talked about answering, is how can we rewire our brains to change our automated way of thinking?
Yeah, so it kind of goes with the two examples that I gave you. But so taking a step back, our brains are naturally have a negativity bias, and it's our survival brain, right? It's just
Oh.
And so the idea that when our brains were developing, it was so much more important to be aware of saber-toothed tigers, that was life or death, versus to recognize a beautiful sunset. Right? Like, so we have
stay alive.
So literally, there's a bias and a more I don't know, more attention given to the negativity side of things, because survival matters more than appreciation in terms of being physical in this world.
Sure.
And so because we already have that negativity bias, and then we grow up in this world that can show us some things that we're not exactly thrilled about. And regardless of how wonderful our parents and all the people around us intended to be, things don't always go perfectly and people don't always react perfectly. And so we start to build up more and more of these ideas and these habits and things that just aren't not necessarily true or positive, right? So we get into the space where by the time we're adults, we have so much of this negativity built up in us, and we start to believe those things. So we can actually, it seems like there are neural pathways, there are habit thoughts that have formed because we have repeated these things so many times. So that is true. However, it does not mean that it has to be that way. We're not set in stone. It's not just because it's always been this way for me, it's always going to be this way for me. None of that. All of those things can be changed, and that's how we can rewire. And so rewire is literally just building in new habit thoughts. And we do that by questioning the old ones. So we're weakening them down, and then finding thoughts that feel a little bit better, that feel true to us, and then really practicing that. And so we start to build more and more evidence. And when we do that, we are literally changing our brain and creating new neural pathways, which are habit thoughts, creating those neural pathways. And so that becomes our new automated response. Sort of like, I find this with my clients all the time, a lot of them dealing with weight loss. Like they're, just like, I have a sweet tooth. I have a snack person. I have to eat snacks. I have to do this kind of thing. So they have this thought, like they need to have this. This is what they do all the time. And then they do it all the time. So it seems like this is a true thing for them because they've built up evidence. But when you question that, like, what does that mean you're a snack person? Like, what does that mean you have to have a snack at 3:00 kind of idea? Right. And this is just an example. But when you start to question it, like, are you actually hungry? Do you even want that? Is that something you even enjoy eating? Right. And then like, well, no, it's most of these things, right? And so you just try to think, okay, what else could be true? What else could be different? And so really just start to question that, which is so much more empowering than the idea of like, nope, give up that snack. You can't have that snack or you're going to need to lose weight, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants it told not to do. But when you tell people like, you can do anything, especially question why you do it. All I'm asking you is question. It doesn't mean you even have to stop. But once you start to question it, then you start to think new thoughts and think differently about it and then try something different. And it all just feels so much more natural. And then before you know it, like you're not that person anymore. You've now created a new habit thought that doesn't include that. That just feels normal to you. It's your new normal.
Yeah, that's great. just questioning it.
And
Yeah,
right?
like you said, you don't even have to stop or have to quit or whatever,
Yeah.
just to think about it.
Yeah.
I have actually been on like a health journey myself and, trying to lose weight. And so I don't know if this is the right term, so maybe you can help me out here. I've been trying to like shrink my stomach, where it's like normally it would take me X amount of food to be full. And so I'm trying to like eat a little bit less, not like restrict myself on what I'm eating, but just eat like in smaller quantities and then get over that sort of hump. I don't know if that's like the right way to put it. But I've been doing really well on it. And the other day it was like lunchtime and I was like, okay, I'm going to walk to Whole Foods, maybe get a salad or something like that, get some sushi. And I was walking up and down the aisles of Whole Foods, like with the idea, Rachel, you can get whatever you want. It's lunchtime. And I was not hungry for anything.
Yeah.
And it was just the idea of like, okay, I don't need to eat because it's lunchtime. Like it would be great if I was hungry and I wanted something and I could have it, sure. But like the fact that I was able to like consciously think about it and be like, am I actually hungry? No, I'm not. Okay. So, you can keep wandering around the grocery store, but like nothing is going to be satisfying because there's nothing to satisfy.
Exactly.
And so I ended up just leaving Whole Foods. I think I got like a water or something. And I'm not saying that that's like, a diet trick or whatever, but it was just, kind of questioning myself and my body. And it turned out that I wasn't even hungry.
You just remind me of another Instagram. It's a little different than that, but the one going around about like, because we're so used to our nation just eats junk food all the time, that just eating whole foods is like being on a diet. But yeah, just the idea of listening to your hunger cues and eating when you're hungry and not eating when you're not hungry, like that will take you so far and coming into a natural weight that feels good to you without restriction. Yeah.
And it's crazy how much healthier I'm eating now that like I'm not as hungry. And I'm like, well, I'm not hungry, but like I know I have to eat. So like, let me eat an orange or a banana, as opposed to like, oh my God, I'm starving. Let me bake a whole lasagna or something like that. And then, end up overeating, whatever. That's like besides the point. But yeah, it's just crazy like how much our mind impacts our daily habits. Like, so I think too, I was telling Jaylin before we started this that I started rereading the book Atomic Habits, and it has in there like a story about someone who's smoking and the difference between someone who's like, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking when offered a cigarette versus someone that says, oh, I'm not a smoker. And there's so much more power in the words, I am not a smoker, than I'm trying to quit smoking. Because like that implies that like, oh, you previously smoked or you're trying, so maybe you haven't yet.
Yeah.
So I actually quit vaping in December, and it was just like not serving me anymore. And I think I was like, it's not the person that I am, and it's not who I want my identity to be around. And like, I don't want to be that person who like is like frantically looking for their vape and, like, I was just like, this doesn't fit my identity. And so I think that too, being a habit shifter of like, does whatever you're doing serve the person that you want to become? Or is it just are you just doing it out of habit?
Yeah. And again, that's just kind of like questioning it again, right? Because so many things that we do, we've just done out of habit. And like things that we are doing that we don't want to be doing anymore, or things that we haven't started doing because like I deal with a lot of women that are having trouble getting started with their exercise. I'm like, well, I'm trying to get an exercise. Well, I'm like, are you a person who exercises? And so like we work on that identity. Like, no, I am an exerciser. I am somebody who prioritizes my physical fitness and things like that. And then suddenly there's so much easier to get to class versus when they're trying to fit it in. And I tell them my own story all the time. And I just had this with the time change. I had a particular morning where I was not in the mood to work out. And I was like, but I got up and I was like, you know what? I just had to get started. Another one from Atomic Habits. Do your 2 minutes. Like, put your shoes on, go get started, see what happens. And I got my whole workout in, and it was much better. But I was also had that mantra. I'm like, no, I am an exerciser. I am somebody who gets my workout done. I follow through. Like, these are my identities. These are things I want to reinforce in myself and who I am. And so I'm going to follow through with that practice. And it was very helpful. But yeah, there's There's always going to be some challenges to it. And so figuring out where your base is and how strong your base is, kind of building up the fitness of your base, is going to make it so much easier to make those decisions in ways that are going to be beneficial for you.
Yeah. That story reminds me of the quote that like fear is a mile wide and a foot deep. And I know it's not like particularly about fear, but kind of like, whatever our mind tells us, like you said, not wanting to like work out in the morning and get your workout in. And then you do it and it's like, you're fine and it's easy and, you're proud of yourself that you did. But yeah, there's so many moments in everyone's life where, it's the idea that's stopping you. It's not the actual doing of whatever you want to do. It's just the thought of it.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you can get out of your brain, like we've been saying, and into your body and just do it, it's so much easier.
Yeah. And so breaking down that barrier to do that, like the 2-minute things, or like making them really small and taking those baby steps, is going to make that so much easier. Because once you're in your head, like the idea of like, oh, just get out of your head and do it. Like that concept feels like that mile wide, right? But once you realize like, it's just a little pedal. It's just like a little splash pad.
Yeah. I had a similar thing this morning where I just didn't want to like wake up. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to wake up, but I'm going to go walk and get coffee and go outside and be in the sun. And like, then I'm going to forget how much I didn't want to wake up. It's like I got out of bed and I went downstairs and I got my coffee, went for a walk. The sun was shining and I was like, okay, ready to fucking start my day. And it was just like, duh. And we all have moments like that. Yeah. But it is just, where do you think those come from? Is it fear? Is it, I don't want to say laziness, but maybe for me not wanting to get out of bed. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it can be a whole ton of combination of different things. But I think the more important part is that because we don't want to have like those mornings where you don't want to get out of bed or that I didn't want to do my workout. We don't want that to be the part that defines us. And at that point, we're like, well, now I have to figure out how to overcome this barrier, right? We want to, again, build that fitness outside of it. So work on ourselves on the days that we are feeling good, which are the majority, right? So majority of the time we're feeling good, we want to keep practicing and building that up so that we can call on that self when we're not feeling super great. Because I think there's a ton of combinations, whether it's a time change or you didn't sleep right or something got you to bed later that day or whatever it is. I don't think that pinpointing that necessarily is so important because I think that can be a bazillion different things. But it's what you do after that, right? Like that's just one tiny little circumstance. But what you do after that is going to make the difference of your outcome.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so you mentioned when you talk to your clients about changing their identity and being like, okay, you are someone who values physical fitness and health and you do get your workouts in. Do you have any tips for people, maybe it could be workout related or not, to help them change their identity?
Sure. So I think the important part is to really find out what matters to you, because I think it's incredibly hard to try to adopt an identity that you feel like you should have that you don't actually care about, right? So like so many people I know, especially when it comes to weight loss, and even I actually separate weight loss and exercise in terms of not to exercise for the weight loss. I want to just put a caveat in there. I still really, really value strength training when you're losing weight because it's so important to hold onto your muscle, and that's going to have a lot of different things. But not to exercise for the calorie burn kind of idea, or to like to earn your food, things like that. But so many people are like, I want to exercise, but I don't care about weight kind of thing, or I want to lose weight, but I don't care about exercise. And I'm like, you don't have to marry these things together. Like what's actually important to you right now, and let's work on that, and let's get you feeling more and more of who you are and what your true self is. And so whatever that calling feels to you. And a lot of times once you get back into who you really are, then you want to start doing other things that are healthy for you, right? So like a lot of times people want to like, I just want to exercise and get stronger and I don't care about weight loss or how I'm eating or any of those things. Like, okay, great, let's get you stronger, right? And then once they do that, they're like, okay, I'm feeling stronger and I'm feeling more energized. Okay, now I want to eat better, and like, oh, look, everything fits better. So it's building off of those things, but really just starting with what actually matters to you versus what you think you should be doing.
Yeah, I love that. Because if we feel like we should be doing it, then we're not going to do it. Or we can't sustain it. You can only pretend for so long.
Yeah. And there's definitely a different styles of trainers, and trainers are like can't think of a better way to say this than beat it into you. Like, I'm not that.
Right.
I am the call you into who you are kind of person and help you get out of your own way and feel more of the power that's already inside you so that you can do the things that are important to you.
Yeah, I feel the same way about my life coaching too. I'm like, the goal of me as your coach is to not need me. You know, maybe right now for this season of your life and there's an obstacle or a goal that you have that you want to tackle and you need some teamwork, sure, like let's do that. But like, I think the whole idea of my coaching at least is to like empower people to make good decisions on their own so that they don't need me for their entire lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you said like, oh, some coaches beat it into you, I'm like, well, those are the coaches that like, I guess will always have work because, but they're also the ones whose like, you know, clients kind of still feel like shit or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I know I'm not that. Every now and then I'll have somebody come to me. They're like, yeah, I just really, I love negative reinforcement, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not the coach for you. Like,
right. Yeah. And I mean, you work on that mindset and like both of the emotional, mental part of it with the physical. But yeah, it's got to be a balance, right?
yeah, well, absolutely. But yeah, I think like you can absolutely be motivated by your negative emotions, right? You can stress yourself into performing. You can be so afraid that you perform more and things like that, whether we're talking about physical or like at work. Generally, this happens more at work. So you can 100% be motivated by your negative emotions, but not happy. And that's not good enough for me.
Yeah, that's not fulfillment either. Never going to feel fulfilled with that.
Yeah.
So you have on this little form that you filled out that I want to talk about because you have some good little nuggets here. And it talks about something called the sage perspective and how everything is seen as a gift or an opportunity. Can you share with the listeners, you know, how you came across that knowledge or how that relates to you and the boutique fitness?
Yeah. So this actually the term sage perspective comes from the positive intelligence company that I learned from. But it lines very closely with my beliefs from Abraham Hicks, as we talked a little bit about before of it.
Love Abraham Hicks.
Yeah. So Abraham Hicks been teaching the law of attraction for 20 some years now. And their idea is that there are no mistakes. There's nothing bad. Nothing goes wrong. Everything happens on purpose. And the sage perspective is that you can find a gift and opportunity from absolutely anything. And so they kind of mirror each other. And it really becomes whether you follow into the spiritual beliefs or not, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you expect to find something good out of something, you're going to find it. And if you expect to find something bad out of something, you're going to find it. Right. So either one of these you can pull through. But so I choose to expect to find the good out of things. And that's how I guide my clients. And it's so wonderful and profound, especially turning somebody onto this that's never seen from this perspective before, where they can really start to see all of the positive aspects that come out of absolutely any situation, any thought, anything that's happened. And I know everybody can take this to extreme examples and we can go there if they want to, but let's just talk about like 95% of the things that happen because that's a lot harder to argue with. But just the idea of just keeping that in your mind that whatever happened, like just going back to somebody cutting you off on the road, well, they might have saved you from an accident or, you know, you might have missed your turn if they hadn't gotten you to slow down. Who knows what it is, but you can always find a positive aspect about whatever's happening. There's always a gift and opportunity in it.
Yeah. And why wouldn't you want to see everything as a positive?
Right?
I mean,
yeah.
I guess there's some like pessimistic people or just maybe people who are like too involved with realism. But it works on so many levels, you know, with our faith in ourselves, with relationships, you know, with weight loss and you know, health and fitness, so many things that can be applied to.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite parts about teaching to the ladies and to really watch their minds explode open as they start to see things and like even see their weights, like, you know, something that has been so heavy, literally, and detrimental, but like caused them so much pain in so many areas. Like to start to see where the gifts and opportunities are that this has been their experience and to watch them open up to that. It's just, it's very rewarding. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things to teach.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like you said, weight is something that I feel like women hold And I don't know if that's like necessarily a thing of the patriarchy or, it's our own doing. I know that there's magazines and the media that all kind of play into like this role of beauty for a woman. And a lot of it revolves around weight and weight loss. And that's a whole nother topic that we can get into. On every episode that I have a guest on, we always end up like shitting on the patriarchy for some reason. And I'm really trying not to do that, but it just comes out. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people and women specifically who have a really loud inner critic. So what would you say to people who maybe like want to start their journey towards being healthier or getting in shape, but they constantly are feeling unworthy or like the self-doubt?
Yeah. So the inner critic is the part that we address absolutely first thing, that judge. Absolutely every single person has this. And that's one of the things that it feels like such a solo journey. It feels like I'm the only one that feels this way. Whereas like almost the women that come to me, like they're all kind of feeling the same way in the sense. But so back to the PQ apps and the getting mindful and the questioning those negative thoughts, those are literally the two biggest forces we have against that inner critic. But I want to rephrase that a little bit, because the idea of forces is sort of like we're battling, and we do not want to battle because we will lose that battle every time. Like the inner critic that's like our most survivalist, most like I'll do anything to get my way kind of thing. So we're not going to win that battle, but we want to soothe it, right? So rather than fighting against it, we just want to soothe into it, get mindful about it, question those things. And again, the more you do get into this, the more you're going to hear your intuition, and your intuition knows how worthy you are. So once you start to even hear just like a glimmer of that, that's going to give you more and more of that power so that you can soothe into that judge and that inner critic. And so it's literally just a step-by-step process of sort of doing those reps, both the PQ reps and also sort of putting the reps in by asking the questions. And so we're quieting the negative side, we're getting neutral, and then we're amplifying the positive side. And those things are going to help move you out of the control of that inner critic. Because the truth is, it doesn't go away, but it can get really quiet. It can get laughable quiet, where like it'll come up and be like, "Hey, you're not good enough." You're like, "Watch me."
Right. Laughable quiet, and then you start to question it, and you're like, no, incorrect.
Right. Like you have so much of it. It just starts building that curve, right? So it gets more quiet, you get more powerful, and like you just build up so much evidence of all the power that you actually have. So when that voice comes up and tries to tell you like, you can't do that, you're like, I've already done this 10,000 times. I can do it again.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like not a big affirmation person. But more recently, when I look in the mirror, I've started like telling myself like how good I look. And I'm like, you're the sexiest woman around. Like, look how gorgeous you are, Rachel. And at first it kind of started as a joke. Like I was not doing this to like do affirmations in front of a mirror. But I'm like a sarcastic kind of person like that. And so I started just doing this as a joke. And now every time I look in the mirror, that's what I say to myself in my head. And I'm like, God damn, just look at your lashes and your smile. And you have the most stunning eyes. And I'm like, oh, I just like unconsciously like joked my way into being confident.
Yeah.
And so, and then when I similarly, like, I have days where I'm not feeling the most confident, and then I just go to that same mirror and I'm like, I've told myself 100 other times how great I look. How could I not, look great? How can I not feel great? So on those days when I'm feeling like that, it's just combating that behavior and being like, well, actually, I have 100 days of proof to show that, these thoughts are not mine and they're not how I actually feel.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And really, like you found your path of least resistance through humor. And that's great, because the resistance got out of the way. And then you got more and more into who you really are. And it felt so true to you because you already know this. I also am not like an affirmation kind of person necessarily, but I believe in practicing a thought that feels better and a thought that feels better. Right. So whatever thought you're actually feeling, like just pick one that feels a little bit better and try that on, and like kind of repeat that one to yourself a little bit. And that's kind of bringing it up. That's a bit more of a quantum leap using the humor to get around it too. And I like that a lot.
Yeah. That's so great. I love that you said, finding the path of least resistance, because that's what I did, but I never thought about it in that way. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we have to give ourselves kind of the grace to just acknowledge, like, even supermodels and people who seemingly have everything that we want, they all have their days also where they're not feeling 100%.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's like a connection between maybe when you're not feeling so good or unworthy or unhappy, does that happen for a reason?
From the Abraham perspective, that whenever you're feeling those lower end emotions, that you're focused on something that is different than what your inner being believes. And so whether inner being or intuition or however you want to describe that. So, and from the positive intelligence side and into the brain side, that whenever you're into those negative emotions, you're activating that side of your brain that only has access to other negative emotions. So to get yourself out of that, we're either going to go neutral, we're going to question it and bring it to the other side. And many circumstances can get you to feel those negative emotions. And there's nothing wrong with the negative emotion. They're simply an alert. There's just, it's a guidance. Like, like putting your hand on a hot stove is a common example. Like, you want to know that that's hot and don't do that, or else you'll burn your hand. Because if you couldn't feel it, your hand would just disintegrate, right? I want
an indicator.
I want that indicator to not do that kind of thing. And so, like in real life, or even bring this back to weight loss, like if you don't feel good because you're putting on a lot of weight and that you're getting that indicator that doesn't feel good to you, well, it's probably having an impact on your health, and it's probably going to limit you from what you really want to be doing in life. So you want that indicator so that you can make a different change, something that's going to actually feel better. So nothing's gone wrong because you have a negative emotion. And if you want to look and find those gifts, and so we call it, you can either find the gifts and opportunity, it is there, or you can also just have radical acceptance and move on. It's up to you which one you want to choose, because sometimes people don't want to go looking for that gift. And I get it. Like sometimes those gifts they're hidden. They're a little bit harder to find, a little bit smaller. But you can also just have radical acceptance and be like, okay, that happened. But either one of these is going to empower you not to feel like victimized because such and such a thing happened. Like, oh no, woe was me. You don't have to go into that space. Like there's a million other spaces you can choose to go into.
Right. There's always an option. So Jaylin, we're nearing the end of today's episode, but I like to end each one with a quote from the guest. And so I believe you've left a quote on your little form. If you want to say it, you can. If you don't remember it, I'll say it and we can talk about it for a second.
I'll have you do it so it's verbatim.
Yes, it is the Abraham Hicks quote that we were talking about earlier.
Made in harmony with your emotions. I don't have it verbatim.
Oh, as you think thoughts that feel good to you, you will be in harmony with who you really are. Abraham Hicks.
That's the one. I love that one. I should memorize it.
Yeah. And what does that mean to you as you think good thoughts? I mean, we've kind of touched on this, but I'll let this be your closing remarks. As you think good thoughts that feel good to you, you will be in harmony with who you really are. What does that mean to you?
Because who you are is pure positive energy. And so the more you think those thoughts that also feel like pure positive energy, then you are literally connecting with who you actually are, versus those thoughts that come back and give you those indicators that don't feel as good. That means that you're focused on something that's not who you really are. Because again, who you really are is pure positive energy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We got to focus on who we are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jaylin. For those people who want to get in touch with you or want to learn more about you, I'll give you the next few minutes to plug your Instagram or your website or your TikTok or anything that you want to share with the audience so that they can find you.
Absolutely. So you'll find me the most active on Instagram. I'm at I am Jaylin Knight. That's actually my username across all the platforms for Facebook, TikTok, all the things. And then I also have my website, Boutique Fitness. And either way is my coaching and fitness, but I'm mostly expanding online with my coaching business to help women who want to lose weight for the last time, to transform their mind and body so that you never have to diet again.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yay. Okay. And I will put all of Jaylin's links in the show notes if you're interested in going to any of her sites and her socials. But thank you so much for joining us today, Jaylin. It's been a pleasure to interview you.
Cheers.
Awesome. And I will see you all next week on the Dangerously Divine podcast. Thank you for tuning in.